Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sean here for the Natural Gamers. Gonna be doing another review by myself because I'm the only one who plays games anymore these days in the entire of Americas, or at least in my house at this present time. Unfortunately, why won't anybody play games with me, man? It's not fair. It's a bunch of bullshit. But anyways, it gives me a chance to play games that maybe a lot of other people wouldn't want to watch me play because they weren't popular enough, or they just didn't sell well, or the reviews were mediocre, and people just kind of made decisions based on the reviews, which is what you should do. This is what you should do when you buy a game. But anyways, we're gonna be talking about a game that actually came out about a year ago now. It's Spec Ops: The Line. Came almost out a year ago. I think it came out like this past summer 2012. So I'd heard kind of I've heard interesting things about this game before I played it. I had heard that it was kind of more like you should play it more for like a story perspective, and it's kind of what it's talking about, military shooters in like a kind of an intelligent way, and like how we as players interact with military shooters and the way it makes us think and feel and forces us to do, and kind of flipping those expectations on top of themselves and back at you. So to give you some kind of food for thought like type of scenario. So I guess what we'll talk about first, let's just talk about the gameplay. Let's talk about this as like a game. Like, cut out the story. We'll talk about that later, because that is the most interesting thing. As a game, this game is like a throwback. It's a throwback game. I've played a couple of the other Spec Ops games kind of like in the past. Because I mean, Spec Ops as a series it's been around for quite a while. Yeah, it's been around for probably like, I want to say like 10, 12 years. I mean, I think, no, even before that. I think Spec Ops may even go all the way back to PS1. Could be wrong. Could be being forgetful. But anyways, so they were always kind of, there was ones that were better than others, but they were always kind of they're always kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the third-person kind of shooter world. Like, when the daddies were kind of more like your SOCOMs or your Ghost Warfighter, stuff like that, or Ghost Recon rather, like those games were kind of, it's very similar to that, but like just never as good. Like, it was always more of like the budget version of those games. And the new one, it kind of feels like an older game. It does. It's kind of a throwback. It feels like kind of like a PS2 era game in a lot of ways, like as far as playstyle goes. I think it has pretty tight controls as far as like they're very adequate, and they can hang with like modern games as far as like the way it feels, like the tightness, the responsiveness of the controls and stuff like that. And you never really have to worry about like camera, never really too big of an issue or anything like that. But like, it's very simple and rudimentary. Like, you just have like your stable of weapons. There's no upgrading, there's nothing. You just pick up and put down weapons. There's no upgrades, there's no experience for like killing guys. There isn't any of that kind of stuff. So in that sense, it's fine. And like, it was kind of almost refreshing to play something so simple, just because we're so used to like all these like really overcomplicated systems. And I mean, while they're cool to a certain degree and very thoughtful, like they can be kind of a drag and a pain in the ass sometimes if you were not like super into like that, like doing that stuff, which I'm not. Like, I'm not super into playing games and like, spending an hour crafting and modding a weapon. Like, I think they're cool, and I think that's awesome that they're there. But it's kind of a burden sometimes when it is like kind of forced on you, and like, if you want to play the game at any type of like real difficulty level, having that stuff forced on you can kind of be annoying at some point. But anyways, that's kind of just a gripe for maybe another video some other time. But yeah, so from my perspective, like, it was kind of refreshing to be able to play a shooter that was kind of just straightforward shooter. And it's kind of the same thing, wave-based enemy attacks. You got your squad, you take them out, you move on to the next scenario. That stuff it's fine. It's mechanically works fine. You know what? I think it was fine. I think, like, because I think one of the reasons why maybe that like aspect of the game was looked like really harshly was because it's kind of out of date, and it doesn't use a lot of the modern like kind of systems and constructs and like design aspects that a lot of like more modern day like shooters use. But from my perspective, I thought that was kind of refreshing. I don't think like they probably just did it because I think even now, like this, I know they were trying to make something bigger and better, but even then, it's still like a budget title in comparison to even like the SOCOM series or any Call of Duty game. I don't know, like, so that kind of stuff was fine. It's fine. It was entertaining. It was good enough that I did not feel like angry or pissed off like as I was making my way through the game, and I was able to play it, and it was fine and satisfying, and I wanted to keep going because, which is what I'll talk about next, is the story. The story is the most interesting part of this game. I'm not gonna go into spoilers, however much I would like to. It's really interesting, and it's like, I will say this, like, I would give this game a recommend based on the story alone. I think the gameplay is solid enough that you will be fine, and you'll be able to make it like through the game and enjoy it while you're playing. It's not going to blow you out of the water or anything like that, but the story is really the most interesting thing. The problem with the story is because by design it's kind of like a slow burn. It takes about 2/3 of this game to like really heading into serious interesting territory. It's never terrible. It's always kind of interesting. And they, this, just like most games, they have like collectibles and stuff. The way they use collectibles in this, there's not a lot of them, and they're called intel or the intelligence. Like, you find these files, and it kind of like further deepens the story and gives you more information on characters and kind of the situation, what's going on. Also, like, brings up a lot of relevant questions and stuff. The game is kind of, this will be a spoiler, kind of, if you're a literary person. If you went to high school, maybe you might have read this in high school. Hearts of Darkness is very loosely based on Hearts of Darkness, and there's a lot of kind of mind fuck stuff in here. There's a lot of meta stuff going on here, and the game does it in extremely clever ways. It's kind of hard not to talk about it. Okay, listen, it's worth playing for the story, so you should play it for that. I'm going to get into some spoilers. I'm going to talk and open this discussion up a little bit. Yeah, so if you do not want to have this spoiled, stop watching right now. Okay, so anybody that doesn't want to have this spoiled, I hope you either shut it off or whatever. If you still have it on, that's your fault. So anyways, this story is really about the characters, and also you as the character, because it's kind of asking yourself, because you're controlling him, and it includes you in this conversation about war, like on a character perspective, like kind of the toll of war, the kind of horrible shit that happens, the kind of that there's never any winners. This game does not have a happy ending. There is no like, we beat the big baddies, we beat the bad guys, and we go home and rah rah rah, like, war, soldiers, blah blah blah, like you're gonna find in every other modern military shooter. That's not at all in this game, and I was really kind of blown away that an American game about being critical of just the idea of war and what war represents and the realities of war was kind of astounding. And it also, as a player, it's kind of talking to you a little bit about what you do in these games, the kind of stuff you engage in, and how does that make you feel, and like, are you okay with it? Like, it at least asks the question. Like, some people are going to oversimplify this. They'll look at this game as very superficial, not really be paying attention, playing it like a mindless shooter gallery. And I think it's worth a lot more than that. Like, it's worth your attention, especially and you have to play the whole game to get the whole experience. If you play this game for like 3 hours and you're kind of like, this is really boring, what the fuck was Sean talking about? Like, I would understand that. Like, but you have to play it like from beginning to end for it to make its entire point. It's got a thesis going on, and it's kind of a powerful one, even to a certain degree. And as far as like spoiler stuff we're going to talk about here is like kind of like the fact that this is all happening in kind of the character's mind. It's about his personal hell, like in his how like sorry he is for the kind of the things he's done, and how he's kind of like turned into like a monster, and like how just the idea, the act of war, and like soldiers that have to do some horrible shit, like the kind of weight that it would carry with them, like as a person, and it kind of fully acknowledges that in a realistic way, not in a way like in a cartoony fake like action movie way. Like, that's the most like thing I hate about kind of like a lot of like the campaigns of like the Call of Duty franchise and the Medal of Honor franchise. It turns this like horrific shit into like a cartoon. It turns it into just popular. It just turns it into like a piece of weird fiction, and there are no like realistic like depictions of characters and stuff like that. And I know like people can say the argument, well, action movies do the same thing and stuff like that. Well, the problem is that there is a difference. I think there's a subtle difference. The subtle difference is you are actually kind of proactively part of this experience, because you're the player, you're the controller, and the game doesn't move forward without you. And those games are just like, I'm not gonna say like it has like an adverse effect on people. Like, I don't think you can on every person. Some people I do, like some people that just aren't actually paying attention, don't engage in the material, and just like idiot fucking line towers that just believe whatever their political persuasion is and blah blah blah, just never ask any questions for themselves, don't actually engage any material that they watch or play or listen to. And it'll probably affect those people in an adverse way, just in the same way, because the message of that stuff is very just like pro-war, like totalitarian type governments, and that the government's going to take care of you and then knows the best for you and stuff like that. They don't ever directly come out and say that stuff in those games, but they definitely imply it. And Spec Ops: The Line, thankfully, they do not ever do anything like that. Actually, even points the fingers at just some of those other games in very subtle ways. Like you have this ability to do an execution move. Like you'll take out a room full of dudes. Some of them will still be kind of alive. They're down and they're kind of alive, and you can, when you're walking past, you can execute them. And the thing is, you don't have to do that. You can keep walking. But if you execute them, you actually get like ammo bonuses and stuff like that. So it's kind of just talking about just like the violent, horrible shit that we engage in games to get like a reward. And there's also literally a point where one of the characters actually like he's actually pointing at the in-game character Walker, and they're having this discussion and how he's like yelling at Walker and telling Walker how this is all his fault and stuff. And then Walker kind of moves out of the view of like the camera, and then the guy ends up just pointing his two fingers up at you. And for a second, they're like his virtual character eyes, like meet your eyes and stuff. And it's kind of a powerful moment. It's kind of very surprised. Like, and there's even stuff where you kind of have to like question a lot of what you're doing and like what the fuck it is. Like even some of the missions and stuff like that. Like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And kind of, I don't know, it's just really interesting because you're not the good guy. Like, you're not really presented in the most positive of lights, which it was kind of refreshing in a way, just to acknowledge that kind of in war there are no real winners. It's not like a black and white type good versus evil type of thing, especially in the modern landscape of like what war entails and stuff like that. And this game actually kind of talks about that stuff and has a conversation with you about it. And that's cool. It's very refreshing, and that's kind of why I would give it such like a definitely worth like a try. Like if you can get this game for like $20, like it's worth your $20. Or if you are a PlayStation Plus member right now, you can get it for free. That's how I played it, which is awesome. This PlayStation Plus is like turned out to be like one of the coolest things ever, because I've got to try out all sorts of games that I've kind of was always on the fence about or even forgot about, like this game, like Spec Ops: The Line. I kind of just totally forgotten about it, and I was pleasantly reminded by PlayStation Plus, and I was like, I always want to try that out, and I can try it out for free and play the whole thing. That's pretty awesome. But beyond that, there are a few problems with even like kind of the mechanic structure of the game as far as like these moral dilemmas you're up against. The problem is that you're never given a choice not to really do something, other than you have the optional things like I was talking about before, like the execute move and stuff. That's totally optional. But this like there's other things that you can't do. Like you can't, like, evil shit that you're gonna do. There's a point in the game where you're kind of like stealing Dubai's water supply, and you're not really sure why, like, and you can't really even engage or ask questions because it's not that kind of game. It's a very linear experience because it's meant to make a point to you and stuff. But I think it would have been awesome if you had, in some of those kind of crunch decision moments, been able to decide one way or the other. Just to add, I guess, a little bit, because like even for me, like I knew what I was doing was wrong, and there was nothing I could do about it as far as like player. Like I had no agency in that kind of part of the game, which was that is kind of the only flaw really I kind of found with that type of storytelling, where it's trying to make this point, is making a point by forcing you into doing certain things, which maybe is even its own kind of commentary itself about just what it's like to be a soldier and forced to do horrible evil shit because of orders. And that's that's also, maybe that's another layer that was in there on purpose. I don't know. There's actually one last thing I want to bring up. There's actually an interesting commentary, or not a commentary, a podcast that was done with the lead writer for Spec Ops: The Line at GameStop. I'm going to try to look up a link for it and put it in the description, because if you're interested at all, even if you're just interested in like writing kind of popular fiction or writing stuff that's maybe a little bit more on the esoteric side, and kind of that delves into like kind of the areas that this game delves into as far as just like structure and style, and how that relates to games, even if you're not even like really into playing a game like this, but like, and how you can use those kind of things, storytelling in games. It's actually a really kind of illuminating hour. It's about an hour conversation, and it's really interesting, and it's worth listening to, whether or not you're ever going to play Spec Ops: The Line. That's why I bring it up. But I'll try to remember to put it in the description. If I don't, leave a comment. Remind me. I'll get it for you. But anyways, that's about going to do it for me. Yeah, just wanted to kind of, I guess I meant this to be quick, and it probably wasn't. It's probably kind of long and rambling. But, you know, that's what I'm rusty at this stuff. We're getting back into it. Anyways, I'm Sean. I'm a natural gamer, and I will talk to you next time I have something to talk about.